All right. Hello, hello. Welcome to our March mini retreat. This is so exciting. If this is your first time here, so glad to welcome you here. My name is Lolo. I'm the founder of a Soulful Sorrow, and it's it's like a support group, but so much more than that. So we can't just call these sessions that we're doing today a support group because when I think of support group, I just hear oh, we're all just going to sit around and kind of riff and talk. And we will actually have that later on. But really, what we want to do is create this beautiful container and cocoon for you to come and enter and really just take care of yourself. Really take the moment to slow down, be with yourself, be with your emotions, and then also feel supported from our community. And so, mini retreats felt like the most spacious name for what we're about to experience together. And before we dive in and I start sharing my screen, I just from the bottom of my heart want to just acknowledge your courage for being here. Whether you're here in person with us right now over Zoom or whether you're watching a replay later on, I just have so much respect and adoration for any mama that's experiencing loss and is eager and hungry to see what's here. There's so many gifts within our grief. And so here at A Soulful Sorrow, we're really here to help support mamas see the beauty in the pain. And there's no toxic positivity here. This is really just really talking about the real realities and the rawness of what happens when we experience loss at any gestation. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. So I'm going to start to screen share and it just helps me kind of keep on on task, so to speak. So let's get to it. But yes, if we have only been friends on social media, it's so nice to actually connect and be here in real time, right? I don't know, social media is just weird. We use it as a tool to connect with people, but really, like, our heart is to really just be here with you and also inside of our community. I see some community members that are here and it's so nice to see you guys outside of the app, outside of, those little tiny squares. So we'll kind of just start with a little intro of who I am, because I think it's important to know one another and know why we're here. But I very much was sitting in your seat almost 8 years ago, feeling completely undone by back-to-back losses and a really long 10-year history of infertility treatments, surgeries, procedures. Um, and then we got the green light and they were like, yeah, you guys got this. So we felt like we ran our race. We felt like we did all the right things. And then we still endured two back-to-back losses. And at that time, I scoured the internet, as I'm sure a lot of you guys probably are doing. And I found some quotes that were helpful. I found some accounts that were helpful, which I'm so grateful for. But I felt in a way that there was all this talk about like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You'll get through it, but nobody was actually telling me the how. Like, how do you actually move through this? How do I make sense of all the things that I'm feeling? And so I felt like that was a really big miss. And so I kind of went on my own healing journey and kind of just dove into grief work, and got a lot of different certifications around grief. And I started to kind of um, figure out a healing pathway for myself. And honestly, I didn't think at the time, I was just trying to survive. I didn't think I was making anything. I was just like, I need these tools to help me get all of this angst of home in my life because otherwise it's going to literally eat me alive is how I felt. And so yeah, I've been a nurse for almost 15 years, critical care nurse sitting at the bedside of some really difficult moments in humanity. So I've already had this capacity and this draw from my soul to just sit with people in pain. But more so than that, when I went through it myself and I was on the other side, I really recognized the lack. And so going through and getting breathwork certified and trauma and yoga informed certified. And now I'm about to start like an official death doulaship, which sounds really scary, but it's really beautiful. And it's something that our culture doesn't do very well. So that's a little bit about my background. And so all of that to say, it, God, so to speak, just like hit me on the head of like, you need to create something that you wish existed. And so that's what a soulful sorrow is. And so, just briefly, who we exist to evolve the narrative and experience of pregnancy loss from taboo, coldly clinical, to socially inclusive and sacredly approached with gracious honor and reverence that this transformational experience deserves. So, truly, it's an honor to guide women along the journey to transmute this grief in meaningful ways into our stories, our lives, and our very beings so that we may emerge more whole, more healed, and more wise women. And then we do this through practical step-by-step holistic healing framework, which you'll get to taste and feel today. And that really comes through with everything that we do. And we have online guides, we have our online program called The Collective in our online community. And so that's how we are helping transform the experience of loss from something that was silent and unsupported to something that is seen and supported and held in sisterhood. So before we start, I just want you to come as you are. I know that this week might have been heavy. Grief may be heavy right now. All of us are coming in today with just different perspectives, different experiences. And so we just honor how you show up today. And so as we move through today, we'll be talking about some things and it's like ways that maybe you haven't heard of before, ways that maybe feel convicting to you or maybe like hard to even like wrestle with. So as we're moving through this topic, always practicing the practice of curiosity over judgment. And that's something that will save us so much grief. And I mean that kind of pun intended, but in the sense of like unneeded harm when we're judgy of ourselves or other people, of like, why am I not moving through this quicker? Why am I still so angry? Why am I still XYZ? Instead of that mentality or tonality, we change it to, what can I learn here? What is my anger here to teach me? Okay, what maybe something here is unhealed and it's asking for my attention. So as we move through today, we just invite you to practice that curiosity over judgment. And so we always light a candle at the beginning of our time in any work that we do. And that is because we want to honor our babies. And if you have a candle, feel free to light one. If not, please know that I'm lighting one on behalf of all of our babies. So together, as we light this candle, just be silent. So a blessing as we start. Just maybe if it feels right for you, holding a hand over your chest or just simply gazing forward somewhere in your room that feels safe. But today we arrive as we are, without judgment and curiosity only. Collectively, we come with different backgrounds and stories, but one common thread of this sacred sorrow. So may we come forward with open hearts, knowing that we are fully seen and fully supported in this space. Okay. So this is such a rich topic and one that like I could spend hours talking about. So we're gonna just start with what is the real, almost opposing force of healing after loss. And I would say that it really comes down to the shoulds and the shame. All of us endured loss in some capacity. We all have a narrative and a story that happened, right? There was a knowing that happened, whatever your circumstance was, whether you started to bleed, whether your numbers went down, you knew, right? And all of us innately, so we somehow know when something's going wrong. We all, as women, have that inner wisdom. And so that moment, right? From that moment on, a story unfolded of loss. And there's different characters in the story, right? Your doctor, your partner, however it unfolded. And as you look back, it's so normal for us as humans, right? To try to go through and think like, oh man, I shouldn't have drank that cup of coffee, or man, if only I didn't go on that trip, or if only we didn't do this, or if only I would have spoken up when I felt like something was wrong. If only, if only, if only. We have all these shoulds. And the root of that discontentment and grief really is shame. So just asking yourself and sitting with this question of like, where in my story are there sharp edges where I still feel caught up on? And there is something to say too, that there are just, excuse my French, just shit circumstances. And I say that not to like make anybody feel a type of way, but just to validate that sometimes things do just go wrong. It's out of our control, or something was missed by our medical team. So with that said, like there's so much reverence that I have for those circumstances. But if there's any parts of our story that feel sharp or almost self-inflicted, or like for me, I'll just speak very openly and honestly, I felt like the week or two before my first pregnancy and loss, we had a big backyard barbecue and I was drinking, and I beat myself up for that for so long. So like it's things like that where you're like, man, I still hold this like anger almost towards myself, or regret. That's a sharp edge, right, in my story. So coming around and just acknowledging them. But like, where in your story have you shoulded on yourself? And so as you're moving through the grief journey, you'll notice that word come up a lot, should. And anytime that that word should comes up, it's just a cue. It's an invitation for curiosity, right? It's why am I continuing to say should around this certain aspect of my story? And is that something that was actually in my control, or was it out of my control? And that's a really hard thing to sit with, right? But it's something that instead of just continuing to should on ourselves, it compiles. Instead, now we can begin to start to look at it with a little bit of curiosity and a little bit of like leaning into our story a bit. So shame, its origin and cycles. Honestly, the core belief of shame is that we did something wrong, right? Where can you trace back in your story that you feel like you did something wrong? There was a study done, I think it was the US, but 78% of women said, I feel shame and blame after my pregnancy loss. So it is a very, very like normal experience to feel some type of shame. And shame honestly cannot survive being spoken. Anybody else love Brene Brown? Oh my gosh. Love her. She is a queen. So shame needs three things to survive. It needs secrecy, silence, and judgment. And what do we have in our culture around pregnancy loss? We have all of those things. We have secrecy. We have this pressure of like, I don't know how to tell my boss. I don't know how. It's like this weird thing that like people don't have context or language around yet. So we feel this like secrecy almost, and also too honoring the fact that it is so tender. Sometimes we don't want people to know, right? It is this like sacred secret in some ways. Then there's silence, and then there's judgment, right? There's always people saying something about mothers birthing children, whether they live or not. Like it's just so sad, but that is the climate that we live in. So that is why like we are so freed up from that tangled web of shame when we speak it out in safe, non-judgmental spaces like this. And that is where so much of that healing and understanding yourself can come in, because I remember feeling so stuck in this shame. Like it literally felt like cobwebs, like over, I like couldn't see clearly. I couldn't connect with myself clearly. And it was only when I actually named it for what it was and started to talk about the sharp edges of my story and start to talk about the shame cycle that I kept getting into, that I started to finally see the light on the other side of the tunnel. So if you're fresh in your grief, this might feel like, Lolo, are you serious right now? And I hear you. And I've been there. I think we've all been there. So if this doesn't land for you, that's okay. Like it may one day. Grief, I truly, truly believe, can be one of our greatest teachers. We've been conditioned to almost fear grief and heavy emotion. I read the other day that actually having like grief and sadness and actually feeling it actually improves our mental health and our longevity, which is really interesting. But it's when we block out the emotion, right? Distance ourselves, dis-ease almost comes in and finds it a home in our bodies. Have you guys heard of like The Body Keeps Score, that book? It is such a our emotions are so uniquely tied to our bodies. And I don't need to tell you, right, that loss was and is a very visceral, physical grief. One that I think is the only type of grief, right? That really, it's literally death passing through our bodies. So it is a very intense grief experience. And we've been taught to fear it. And so, what if we could actually reframe viewing grief as a teacher, as a companion, versus something that you need to contain, control, or conquer? That's a really good question. That's something even to sit with and to even journal about or just think about. Like, what is your relationship with grief currently? Is it something that you fight? Is it something that you hate, that you don't want? Is it something that you welcome, that you're giving a home in your life, that you're giving it space to talk to you and have a relationship with? Or are you trying to hide from it? And I will say, right, like there's moments in our journey where we feel strong and we're like, yes, I'm in a place where I can process the grief. I can process my story. And then there's days where you're just like, screw this. I don't want to think about it anymore. And you just want to have a normal day. Like all of this is normal, right? Because all of our grief journeys look completely different. And one thing about grief is it's not linear. It's not like, all right, I'm going to do like a workout program with grief for the next 6 weeks. And then after that, it's going to like shrink like my waistline. No, it just is going to evolve, right? It's this constant companion. And so it almost behooves us knowing that this grief is going to be with us to start to create and cultivate a more healthy relationship with it, right? So, another question to sit with is just what if more self-compassion could come in and meet grief? Because there's times, right, when grief comes knocking on our door or in very inopportune moments, anyone else, where you're just like, oh my gosh, I just saw my father-in-law recently pass away, and grief is grief, loss is loss, right? And he did pottery. And I saw a pottery sign, like pottery sale on the sidewalk, and all my makeup was gone. Like it just hit me. There's moments, right? There's signs that our babies give us. They're always communicating and talking to us. So it's something that I just encourage you guys to start to think about grief in this type of way, because it really opens you up in other ways that otherwise it wouldn't. And so it's just such a good reminder that your story is yours and your journey is yours. Like your unique path is fully yours. And like I can't compare my hurt to Jeanette's hurt. Like I can't. It's very tempting to look left and right and to think like, oh man, that mama endured more trauma, or gosh, they're farther along, like that hurts. Honestly, like comparison is always a lose-lose game, because by saying that yours is better or worse, it's just there, it doesn't serve me or you, right? So are there any parts, I guess, of your story that you're tempted to almost like shrink, belittle? Those are also things that will catch you on the journey of like that will prevent you from fully healing, right? Is this like, I know for me, and I'll be really honest, I had a very early loss with my first loss. And I felt so much grief with it, but I had so much shame because I was like, I don't even have an ultrasound picture and I am wrecked. Like, who am I to have this depth of grief? This doesn't make sense. Well, that's because the world around me was belittling it. My doctor was like, it's normal. You can try again. Da, 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 right? So then it's this disenfranchised grief where we're like, I feel it, but the world's telling me it's not real. It's not, it doesn't matter. So that's a really big thing. So is there any parts of your story that have been hard for you to accept? And then if there are those parts of your story that you catch yourself on comparison or that are just plain hard, what would it feel like to cover those spaces with a little bit more love, grace, and compassion? Okay, this is like getting a little real. Um, as humans, we are meaning-making machines. We experience loss, we experience grief, we experience anything, but something as significant as pregnancy loss, it is trauma in our brains experience it as trauma. Okay, so the parts, I don't want to get too medical, but the parts of our brain that are online when we experience trauma are our lower thinking brain. And so we actually don't have a ton of logic that's ready and available to us when we're experiencing deep grief. And so what can happen is that we actually start to adapt tapes in our head based on a story that isn't necessarily rooted in truth or reality. But yet we are pulling, right? We're pulling all this meaning from these tapes that we continue to think about. And so if there is tapes or something that you've continued to say to yourself, like for me, just being really honest, I'm not a mother. I felt like a mom, like this matrescence was like awakened in me, but I had no baby to show for it. So like, who am I to think that like I'm a mother? That was a really hard tape that kept playing in my mind that was so brutal, and it wasn't helpful. It did more harm than healing. So if there's parts of your story or tapes in your mind that you keep saying to yourself, like what I am statements have you adopted from your loss experience? That's another really good question just to sit with and be witness of. Oh, okay. So we've talked a lot about what can happen right after loss when we endure um, these hard moments in our story, but we haven't necessarily talked about what to do with them, right? And so today, right now, is an invitation to actually begin to kind of sit with and to put into practice some of these questions that we just sat with. I am a firm believer that there is wisdom in us, always ready. It's just a matter of if we can get quiet enough so that it can talk to us, so that we can hear it. Um, our healing isn't in pushing. It isn't in more, busy. It's actually in the slowdown. It's when we're able to actually get quiet and just sit with ourselves. So that's what we're going to do just for 5 minutes is just practice a little self-compassion with ourselves. So basically what to expect. I'll lead you through some somatics. I'll teach you guys some really great tools to actually calm your nervous system down that you can use when and if you're headed into a very triggering appointment, a triggering family event, hello, or you're just feeling very heavy in grief one day. Okay, so I'll teach you some of those tools, and then we'll use those tools to actually start to calm our nervous system down. And then once our eyes are closed, we're feeling good and safe. I'm going to lead you through basically like a body scan. And basically it'll start at your head. We'll go all the way down through your toes. And then we're just going to like just listen of like what emotions are hanging in our body. What story, what belief is coming through that wants to be heard right now? We're going to meet it with curiosity and not judgment. We're going to listen to it. And then right after, I'll gently pull you out of that space, and then we'll open up our journal, and then you guys will have some invitation to just reflect on what came up. So full permission to go through this practice however you want to. If you just want to witness it, that's fine. If you would like to turn your cameras off so that you're not thinking of like, my eyes are closed, but is someone else looking at me? If that's going to help you just be more rooted in the present moment, go ahead and turn down your computer. What am I trying to say? Cameras. There we go. So if you haven't already, just start to arrive in your space and get cozy. You can lay down, you can sit up, really whatever it is, just make sure that you're comfortable and that you're warm, right? So looking around your space, settling in, shifting your body weight in your seat. Maybe just grabbing your cozy blanket, laying down, whatever it is that you need to do in this moment. And first of all, looking through your space where you are, can you find three different textures or three different colors that you look at and they bring some type of positive emotion? I'm looking at the leaves on my plant, the texture on the wall, maybe a photo, just feeling safe in your space. Now we're going to do a little eyeball yoga. So with your head straight and your eyes still open, you're just going to start to keep your head looking straight, but start to move your eyes looking to the left and to the right, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. So continue just to do that a couple times, and you'll feel a sensation rising to either yawn, I got mine, or take a deep breath. And what that's doing is just soothing your vagal nerve, allowing your body to go and sink into its parasympathetic, just rest and reflect. And so once you feel calm enough, go ahead and close down your eyes. You can take any body movements that are asking you to move, maybe some neck rolls, tapping your feet on the earth, opening and closing your palms if you're feeling kind of charged or anxious right now. And then go ahead and just start to find stillness. And when you find that stillness, I want you to start to bring your mind's attention to all the spaces that are connected to the surface beneath you. So if your feet are on the earth, feeling that support and firmness beneath you, feeling the support and comfort beneath you, holding your weight, holding your body. And now just starting to pay attention to our breath, slowly starting to take a little deeper, longer inhale and deeper, longer exhales. And each time you exhale, imagine yourself sinking a little deeper into the support you feel. Feel free to let out a couple sighs on your exhale if that feels needed. Few more times. Now we're just going to tune in to our bodies with a gentle little body scan, almost like an X-ray machine, starting at the crown of your head. And we're just noticing, we're just curious. So as we move through the top of the head, dropping into our mind, we're just observing. So maybe we have racing thoughts. Maybe we're just sad. Or maybe it's the thoughts of, this is weird. Am I doing this right? Whatever is coming through, just let it be. Coming down through the neck, the throat area. Sometimes that can feel a little crunchy and tight if we felt we haven't been able to express ourselves freely. Coming down through the shoulders, maybe allowing those to melt down a little bit more. Coming down through the heart space. Just noticing what resides here. Does this feel dense? Does this feel light? Maybe there is actually an emotion that comes forward that you can name. Coming down through the belly and down through the womb space, which holds so much energetically for us right now. And if it's really intense, almost feel that you can put your hands there in support. Just witnessing, coming down through the hips, which can store so much emotion for us. Coming down through the thighs, coming down to the knees, down through the calves, tops of the feet, bottoms of the feet, and finally the toes. So now that we've checked in with our whole selves, our whole body, which areas were the most talkative? Which felt like they had something there? Maybe you don't even have words, you just have a sense that there was somewhere in your body that felt that it needed or wanted some attention. So gently in your mind's eye, go back to this space. If you're able to access it with your hands, you're welcome to place your hands there, whether it's over your head or your heart or your womb, if that feels supportive. And as we have this space, oftentimes this grief, pain just wants to be witnessed. So we ask, what is it you're here to teach me? And a very gentle invitation for that. You're welcome to do this on your inhale, saying, I am here. And on your exhale, I am listening. So you can just recite those words in your mind. I am here. I am listening. I am here and I am listening. So maybe something did come through. We also recall back to the sharp edges of the story around loss, or even the tapes that play in our minds, the shoulds that are keeping us suspended. Can you call to mind that thought, that belief, that should? And if you can locate where it might be hanging out in your body, go ahead and do that. And again, just tenderly holding this with compassion. And if tears want to come, that's okay. They're welcome. And now I'd like for you to, either in your mind's eye or actually physically, put out your hands with your palms facing up as if you're about to receive a gift. With our hands placed up, I want you to now envision that pain in your body, that emotion in your body, or that story, that should, that belief. Place it there in your hands. Now imagine that being enveloped in a bubble, totally held and cocooned in light and support. And I'll count to 3, and together we're going to watch that bubble actually float away. 1, 2, 3. And together we witness and watch this part of our story get a little lighter as it starts to float up, up through the ceiling, held and supported by this community, by a lineage of women who know this suffering and sorrow as well. Now, coming back into your body, there's any other places that feel angsty, if you're feeling really anxious, even, you can start to just pump your hands open and closed. Sometimes opening up these emotions in our body can feel like a lot. So just feel free to open and close your hands. Taking a couple deep cleansing breaths. If you haven't already, you can start to wiggle your fingers and toes and start to gently come back to the space around you. Stay in this state that you feel yourself in as best you can. Grab your journal, and I'm just going to start to play some really nice, gentle music. And this is a time for you to use however you want. If you just want to just write and you feel inspired and you just want to reflect what just came through, do that. If you want some direction, feel free to look here. There's a couple different things. There's a reflection question, or you can try something called free flow journaling, where you basically can choose one or all of the prompts, however you want to do. About a minute left. Just about one more minute or so. Right. If you are like totally in the flow, keep going. Don't want to interrupt that. I really, really look forward to hearing a little bit more about maybe what came up, maybe what clicked or made sense after today. Um, but just to close out our time together, just want to offer you with a little blessing as we go. And this is inspired by one of my good friends, Eileen Rosette. If you guys haven't seen her book, To Tend and to Hold, it is such an incredible and beautiful book. And so this is kind of adapted from one of her closing blessings from that book. But may you feel seen. May you feel held. May you feel fully supported in all that you are, in all that you're holding. May you never shrink. May you never be too much. May we trust and know that the legacies that we hold within our wombs, within our hearts, lives on through every action inspired by their love. So thank you guys so much for your time today. We're going to talk. I'll shut down the recording here in just a moment. So that way we can just, the people who are here in real time, we can actually have time as a community to talk and reflect. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And I hope that you know here at A Soulful Sorrow, your story matters. Every single loss matters. And truly this community, this soulful sisterhood extends all across the world. And we're really here to help women feel that there is a how to their healing, that they make sense, that they're not just told you can get through this. We actually give you the real like tools and a pathway, an invitation to show you how to hold this and how to move through this. And the how is delivered in like the best way that we could do it. And that is in our app. We created an app where you now have access to us 24/7. This, what we did today, is like a little tiny taste of the soulful integration process that we've developed that helps women really ground our nervous systems, really go back and talk about the deep, real, gritty realities of moving through grief. This is not just another cold clinical, you're going to get through this. We literally have a pathway. And our course, which you kind of see here on the screen, it literally is this gentle step-by-step self-led experience that you get to do in your own privacy, right? Because all of our grief journeys are different. So you get to move through this healing, your mind, body, and soul at your own pace. But yet you also have this like robust, beautiful community around you 24/7. There's chats in there. There's connections. We have support groups and mini retreats like this happening 2-3 times a month. So when you become a member, you get access to all of that. And then another thing that I love to offer, if you're feeling called to it, is I offer one-on-one mentorship. And also we offer facilitating remembrance ceremonies. So if you felt like, gosh, I never felt like I really honored my baby in a way that felt like it really helped me. We're always here to help you facilitate that and also do that on birthdays or anniversaries. Like we are here to deeply support you and your partner and your family through this. And I think it's kind of helpful to see like what this journey is. So just really briefly, because it's so rich. I see members in the community, and I know you guys know this, but like not everyone understands when I say like we literally help you move through this. So mind. So in the first part of the program, the trauma of loss and the story we tell ourselves, which we kind of talked about today, is truly rich soil for lies to take hold. So module 1 helps you unearth the beliefs that are keeping you suspended in grief, shame, addressing the complexities of the feminine wounding unique to womb loss. So we use grounding techniques, kind of like we just experienced, meditation, journaling, somatics, and that really helps you to kind of set the foundation so that you can start to meet yourself again. You can start to reconnect with yourself, and you can start to make sense of the grief that you've endured and that you've experienced. And I feel like a lot of people kind of end there and hang out there. Here, we want to go a little deeper. So we actually address this distrust, right? This sense of distrust or disconnection that can happen with our bodies. A lot of women, myself, I hated my body. I hated myself. I felt like I failed. And so in module 2, we go through this pathway where we really deepen the connection again with ourselves. And we address how we felt angry, that we did something wrong. So we access this grief that's literally harbored in ourselves, right? And we free ourselves up from those lies through a variety of physical engagement, like trauma-informed yoga, guided nature walks. Those are my favorite. So literally we have like walks where you get to just pop your earphones in and it's like you're talking to a friend and you're talking through your grief, but you're out in nature. There's some gentle invitations. So you're really actually physically starting to release some of this grief held in your body. So it's really beautiful to connect that connection to ourselves. And then this module goes even deeper and really addresses the soul. So we focus on honoring the grief and the journey that we've been on with our baby. So we honestly want to empower and explore, right, how we can actually make this meaning from this grief experience. We honor our babies, and we really talk about how to transmute this grief from a place of searing loss to integration and moving towards glimmers of gratitude and healing. And so there's meaning-making rituals, there's rites of passage and remembrance. There's also more audio to get you out in nature. There's a beautiful one where you get to go out and scatter seeds. And it's like this beautiful embodied experience where you're able to honor your baby, honor your grief, and also welcome in hope with them, right? Like everything that we do in our healing journey embodies and welcomes our babies along for the journey. So these are just some things that mamas have said who have been in here, and you guys can read them. I'll just read one here from Hayden. She says, Lolo's community and support was like no other. It's hard for me to fathom where I'd be without it. I'd recommend her community and containers to anyone just to let them know they're not alone. It's truly, I can't do justice of like the journey that we all go on together, but this is truly a sisterhood. And so if you are feeling and wanting that you're wanting more, we're here and we're always here. So make sure if you want to join, there's a code I always give to everyone who comes to our mini retreats. It's called, just type in loved at the end when you check out and it'll take off 20%. And then before I shut down the recording, you guys are the first people that I'm telling this to, but it's super exciting. We just came out with a healing journal, and we actually just came out with membership boxes, and that is it's an option if you want to add it on. And it is this gorgeous box that you'll get that basically is your like field guide for our course. So like the healing audios, there's like gorgeous healing meditations in there. There's our healing journal. There's a hanky that's so beautiful because I think we all deserve something beautiful to cry into. That's just my personal thing. A candle. It's just like this beautiful gift, and that's very tangible and physical. So if that calls to you, let me know. I can send you the link directly, so that way I get your address and I can send that to you too. So Those are really how you get a hold of us, really where the heart of A Soulful Sorrow lives. It's not in social media. It's really inside our app called the Soulful Sisterhood Connect Collective. So I see some members here. We'd love to have you be a part of it as well. I'm going to shut down the recording so that we can